day, everyone. This is Wanda Farrar, the principal broker for Metropolitan and Beach Living Real Estate. Realty Group. It's September, and I'm here to provide our updates. And the first update is our tour stop. So the MLRG Life and Style September tour stop will be Sunday, September the 29th. So for those who may have signed up, we did change the date, and you sure got a notification of that. My travel schedule just got a little crazy. So the 29th is a better day. So I'm hoping you all can join us. The book is Faces at the Bottom of the Well, and it's by Derrick Bell. And so I did start listening to it. It's actually pretty good, at least to me. And I look forward to the discussion that the rest of you had. The actual foreword is by, I believe it's Michelle Alexander, and she is read by a man, but it's a lady who is the civil rights attorney. She's a professor. She summed up some stuff really well, and I really appreciated that. So it was the opening to the book as far as the audio book. So it's easier for me to listen to material in the car. So I was able to at least begin to do that. And I have a few weeks, and so do you, to complete the book if you're interested. So join us on Sunday, September the 29th at 2 p.m. for the book discussion. And the name of the book is Faces at the Bottom of the Well by Derrick Bell. So, okay. And then the second announcement, we only have really two for September, is our business meeting. So we have a business meeting, and it is next week, Wednesday, 6 o'clock. And the subject is realtor safety. So September is Realtor Safety Month. And so we'll have a safety person. I think it's Damsel. I forgot the name of it. Anyway, we have a lady to speak about safety, and we have a title company speaking about some of the changes in our industry that took place in August, and it'll be good to hear from a title company what they're experiencing and what we've experienced over the last almost month since it became effective August the 17th. So that would be interesting. And we also have another young lady who's going to provide information about some of the tools that we use as far as showing properties and receiving offers and XYZ. So anyway, if you're interested, you don't have to be a real estate professional to join us. It's because the information, especially the safety information, is relevant to us all. So one of the quotes that I had sent out in my corporate message was, safety is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And the person who said that is unknown. But yes, we do have to look out for ourselves and our loved ones and make sure we're aware of our surroundings and remind ourselves of things that we need to do to take precaution, because people are up to interesting things these days, and you want to make sure that you can do what you can. Some things you can't prevent, but some things you can. So anyway, just wanted to give you that quick update. And for those of you all who are looking forward to it, October will be spades. So that will be the next game night, will be spades in October. And then November will be bingo. Okay? So I hope you had a great Labor Day holiday, and I look forward to connecting with some of you all soon. Okay? Bye. Good day. This is Wanda Farrar, the principal broker for Metropolitan and Beach Living Realty Groups. And we are here. We're having the 2024 MLRG Life and Style September tour stop. And this tour stop is a book discussion. And as you know, we do quarterly. So we had the whole schedule for the year. Each quarter was 2 game nights and a book discussion. And the book that we have selected for September is Faces at the Bottom of the Well by Derrick Bell. So if you're able to join us or you signed up already, just go ahead and log in with the Zoom link that you should have received. But I also want to mention a couple things. We had 3 more stops for the 2024 tour. The last book is an Ella Baker book. Also, I'm taking suggestions for 2025. So we have to select the books for 2025 so I can do the 2025 schedule. As you know, most of my books are either biographical or human rights. And so if it's in that topic, it will be considered. I'm thinking next year I may have somewhat of a focus on mental health. I'm noticing that that is something that is not discussed as much, and it's probably something that we need to talk about and help people heal. We've been through a lot, we continue to go through a lot, and hopefully we can work together to help each other. So I'm going to play a excerpt, and so if you just wait. Okay, this is a continuation of the intro to the 2024 MLRG Life and Style Tour. I am sharing my screen because this is the opening video for Derrick Bell, and he actually had advice to young African Americans, so listen to this.
What advice would you give to young African Americans today about activism, about their future? Anything that you want to say about that?
I think sort of an updated version of what my parents told me, that you need to be the best person you can, even in the face of all of this, and don't try to, sugarcoat it. I don't think my own children, it was so hard to get across what my parents got across to me. One of my sons said once when he was young, "Dad, you and Mom keep talking about this racism. What's that got to do with me?" And of course, because they're living in a nice middle-class house, our kids never, they always had the children's bathroom. We raised, 3 children, 2 parents, 1 bathroom, But we went someplace and stayed at a cottage, and they came back, "This is our room, but Mom, Dad, where's our bathroom?" So it's much harder for them but I think it's very important. And I chide Lenora Falani. I said, "You're really getting them through college, and many of them then are through high school, and many of them going on to college. What about the glass ceilings and the discriminatory treatment and everything?" "Oh," she said, we'll take care of that in some time."
But let's take care of what's going on.
Yeah, let's get them educated first.
But does it, in terms of the young African Americans, and in relationship to your pessimism about advances during the civil rights movement, the Brown versus Board and all that, is there some reality they need to deal with? As they move along here?
I've had people ask me in book reading, you're too discouraging for our young people. But it's like racism is permanent, which I mean. I think that telling the truth as you see it is never discouraging. It can be enlightening to really know this little white guy up in Boston, who must be in his late 80s now, but is still on the case. And he wrote me after he read The Faces at the Bottom of the Well, talking about this permanence of racism. He said, Derrick, when Howard Selden is his name. So Derrick, when people used to ask me how long is racism going to last, I would say 400 years. But I wouldn't believe it, and it wouldn't be satisfying for them. And he said, then I read your book, and he said, I got it. Racism is permanent. It's always going to be here. And he said he was free. He was going. He had this little office. I guess he had some trust money. He ran this little civil rights office. He'd been running for years. And now he's going to all his friends and he said, racism is permanent. He said he recognized that if you looked at it that way, then when you had a little success, you could celebrate it. But when you had the setbacks, the defeats, you weren't defeated, you see. Because this was part of the thing. You kept going. He said that his example was the alcoholic. That in order for the alcoholic going to the various sessions, to start getting a grip on it, is to stand and say, I am John Jones, I'm an alcoholic, I will always be an alcoholic. But today, I'm going to try to get through without taking a drink.
I thought that was good.
Derrick Bell is one of this country's leading experts on race, racism, and the law. In the 1960s, he worked as a lawyer with Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP to desegregate public schools in the Deep South. He was the first black tenured law professor at Harvard, where he spent more than 20 years before leaving in 1990 to protest the law school's failure to add a tenured black woman to its faculty. Bell is the author of several books on the struggle for racial justice in this country. His newest is Faces at the Bottom of the Well, The Permanence of Racism. Hello and welcome.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Happy to be here.
Why is racism so indestructible?
One of the things I think is that we have mischaracterized it. We have misdiagnosed it, if you will. For years and years, we thought that racism was an aberration, a defect on the American scene, one that was a holdover from slavery, one that we had the tools to correct through law, and one that there was a desire to correct. And it's taken us a long time to recognize that that was a wrong diagnosis, that racism is an important stabilizing function, serves as a stabilizing function in a society that is built on property. And in a society where a great many whites don't have any property to speak of, certainly don't have as much as those on the top, what the society has given them from the time of slavery to the present is a sense of property in their whiteness, that their skin color enables them to somehow identify and live vicariously the lives of those on the top, as also through the soap operas and the tabloids and the hopes through the lotteries, and to feel superior to blacks who, whatever their status, are deemed on the bottom.
Okay, we're going to stop there. All right, you guys, I wanted to make sure that I gave a backdrop on some of Derrick Bell's work and why he wanted to tell us that racism in America is permanent. And so I think it was helpful to me personally because it's a freedom just saying, oh, that's something that exists. And so now how am I going to maneuver? You know, the civil rights folks, the lawyers that fought was thinking that it could be resolved through law. But no, I mean, you really can't change other people. You can only free your mind and how you operate. And so the good thing, I'm getting message. Hey there, we're back. This is the 2024 MLRG Life and Style September tour stop, and we have people joining us after our intermission. So the book discussion is our September activity, and the title is Faces at the Bottom of the Well, and it is written by Derrick Bell. So I'm about to show another video actually it's not a video, it's actually, I think, an audio. So I'm going to share that with those of you who are live or listening to this later so you can hear a little bit about what we're discussing.
Hachette Audio presents Faces at the Bottom of the Well, The Permanence of Racism. Written by Derrick Bell. Read by Brad Raymond. Black people are the magical faces at the bottom of society's well. Even the poorest whites, those who must live their lives only a few levels above, gain their self-esteem by gazing down on us. Surely, they must know that their deliverance depends on letting down their ropes. Only by working together is escape possible. Over time, many reach out, but most simply watch, mesmerized into maintaining their unspoken commitment to keeping us where we are, at whatever cost to them or to us. DB. Forward by Michelle Alexander. Few legal scholars in recent memory have had a greater impact on racial justice, thought, and advocacy in the United States than Derrick Bell. I struggle to think of even one. Certainly no legal scholar has had a greater impact on me. As a law student, I read nearly every word Bell wrote. As a civil rights lawyer, I was haunted by his words and ultimately forced to admit the truth of them. As a law professor, I insisted that my students read the very articles and books authored by Bell that had once been assigned to me. I still have on my shelf the classic textbook entitled Race, Racism, and American Law, which Bell authored in 1971. That text became something like a Bible for me when I was a law student, and I've carried it into every new workspace I enter. Eventually, I wrote a book, The New Jim Crow, which would not have been possible but for Bell's scholarship and the contributions he made to the field of critical race theory. A body of legal scholarship that revolutionized what was spoken, taught, and debated in classrooms nationwide. Bell, along with other brilliant and visionary scholars, exposed the many ways in which racism is deeply embedded in our nation's laws and institutions, including many that are intended to remedy past injustices. I hardly stand alone in being profoundly influenced by Bell's scholarship, as well as his courageous commitment to telling the truth, as best he could, about the realities of race in America. The deep irony is that today, Bell's name is not often spoken in legal and policy debates. His work is rarely cited by judges or legislators, and civil rights lawyers almost never claim to agree with his most famous and controversial thesis, the one that lies at the core of the audiobook that you are now listening to. Racism is permanent in the United States of America, utterly indestructible. The silence is hardly surprising. Civil rights lawyers, like myself, tend to cling to a more optimistic view. We want to believe that the right resources, legal strategies, political rhetoric, organizing campaigns, or media messaging will eventually transform this country into a thriving, multiracial, multi-ethnic, egalitarian democracy. Lawyers of all stripes tend to want to imagine that we can solve, through law reform or litigation, the most vexing social problems. On our good days, we admit that we can't solve these problems alone. We point to our heroes and ancestors who sacrificed so much, often their very lives, to end slavery, lynching, and Jim Crow segregation. Didn't they prove Bell wrong? Didn't they prove that racial justice can be won? We call out their names: Ella Baker, Ida B. Wells, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Thurgood Marshall, and on and on. Thanks to their courage, we say, look how far we've come. We remind people that a mixed-race man named Barack Obama became president of the United States just 40 years after the old Jim Crow system was brought to its knees. Doesn't Obama himself, the mere fact of him, prove Bell wrong? Just look at Obama. Well, don't look at him now that he's been replaced by a narcissistic Nazi sympathizer. Look at him in 2008. After centuries of slavery, followed by 100 years of white terrorism and legal discrimination, the unimaginable happened. A multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-class movement swept a black man into the highest office in the land. A movement that said, yes, we can. Yes, we can make America what it must become. And yet, reading Bell's words today, 25 years after the book was published, I find it difficult to refute the nuanced argument he weaves so gracefully and unapologetically in these pages. I read his words and chills sweep over me. Something lurks in these pages that is eerily prophetic, almost haunting, and yet, at the same time, oddly reassuring. The truth about race and justice in America is always more liberating than the alternative. No doubt there will be those who read this book and find it depressing, disturbing, foolish, or misguided, just as some people did back when it was first released. Some will mock or dismiss the allegories and parables. I remember being confused when I first read Bell's short stories as a law student. I was stunned not only by the content, but also by the simplicity of the parables. Why would a renowned constitutional law scholar choose to write bizarre fictional dialogues involving an imaginary alter ego? Why were the stories written in such a simple, straightforward fashion, using language an 8th grader could understand? Weren't law professors supposed to write stuff that only other academics could comprehend? I will confess that I didn't fully appreciate the genius and power of these stories until I began discussing and debating them with others inside and outside classrooms. For many of my law school classmates, especially those of us who were black and brown, the parables functioned like a key to a secret door that we did not know had been locked within us. Once the door was opened, we found ourselves sharing our own stories, personal experiences with race and racism, including generational pain and trauma, many of which we had not had the courage to reveal before. And many of us began asking questions out loud that had been buried deep within us, locked away out of necessity or convenience or habit. Back then, in 1992, when this book was originally released, the mere act of telling stories that challenged the assumption of neutrality in the law, or that questioned the utility of law, litigation, or policy reform, was deemed a radical, subversive act in many law schools. I was a student at Stanford Law School at that time, and I remember well the battles that raged among faculty members as well as students regarding whether and to what extent Bell's claims and the entire field of critical race theory ought to be taken seriously. Here we are, 25 years later. Bell's commitment to storytelling is no longer controversial in the legal academy. Women, Latinx, and queer scholars have found their voice in legal scholarship in no small part because of the doors Derrick Bell threw wide open. Yet, just as Bell predicted, whatever progress has been made has been matched by devastating, downright disastrous setbacks. Yes, the old Jim Crow system of legal segregation was officially ended by a carefully crafted legal campaign, combined with an extraordinary multiracial grassroots movement. But it is also true that less than 2 decades later, public schools resegregated, and a new system of racial and social control was born in the United States. A system of mass incarceration that swept millions of poor people and people of color behind bars, quintupling our prison population, and regulated them to a permanent second-class status, stripping them of the very civil and human rights supposedly won in the civil rights movement, including the right to vote, the right to serve on juries, and the right to be free of legal discrimination in employment, housing, access to education.
We hope you enjoyed this preview.
So that was the foreword by Michelle Alexander, and she is a American writer and attorney, and she focused on civil rights. I wanted to make sure that you got a chance to see her. She's a very great writer. So also we have one more video, and this one, it's a little shorter. I know I took up a little time with the videos, but I think it helps put things into some perspective and at least hear from others. Let's see if I can load this.
The Permanence of Racism, written by this guy, well, yes, Derrick Bell, who is a law professor, Harvard law professor, and one of the founders of critical race theory. This is the real critical race theory, not all that propaganda nonsense that you're hearing about in American news. This book, to me, is hands down the best book I've ever read about racism. The most, basically, for me, everything I wanted to ever understand about anti-Black racism in particular, but racism in America, he explains it, like, and beautifully. So he's got sci-fi stories in here, he's got case law in here, he's got, like, all essays, he's got all kinds of stuff. And the crux of the book is basically, as you can see by the bottom of the title, racism is a permanent feature of American life. That's his, he's not like, we're gonna overcome racism. It's like, America was built on racism. America will always have racism. Why? Because racism is profitable. Racism makes money. The structure, the racial hierarchical structure benefits people at the top that have an investment in maintaining that. And critical race theory basically looks at how this plays out, how the law, legal systems are a key part of maintaining the structure of racism, right? So initially, slavery is legal. All of the kinds of structures that maintain racial oppression have been legal until they've been challenged. Civil rights movement came, challenged a whole bunch of racist laws. And he's like, they only make alterations to the law when they see that it's possible for it to be profitable, right? But ultimately, with any kind of change forward, there's always a backlash. So as you can see right now, so critical race theory literally looks at how racism is embedded in American law. Multiple examples of that. His book prediction, his thesis is true because there's a major backlash against critical race theory right now. They're banning a bunch of books that I have here. They're banning books by Toni Morrison. They're banning books by any book that talks about the reality of racism, or not just racism, queer people, anything that challenges the myths, the founding myths of America. They're literally making laws right now in the US to ban these books, ban the teaching of critical race. But I like Derrick Bell because, again, like I equate Arma, he's saying understand the reality for what it is so that you actually understand what fight to have, right? And for him, the fight isn't to dismantle it, the fight is more, it's like knowing that you're not going to prove yourself to people who are benefiting from a system. Like, you're not going to convince Trump that racism is bad. He knows it's bad, he doesn't give a shit. It works for him, right? Yeah. So the quote I pulled out that I liked was where he's talking about the ways in which the American racial hierarchy pits poor white people against Black people, right? So he says, conservative white, and again, this kind of threads right back into Octavia Butler. I didn't do this intentionally, but I can do it in the book. He says, conservative white politicians are able to gain and hold even the highest office. Bear in mind, this was written, when was this written? 80s, 90s? Wow. It was written a long time ago. It was written in 92, okay? Yet conservative white politicians are able to gain and hold even the highest office despite their failure to address seriously any of these issues. They rely instead on the time-tested formula of getting needy whites to identify on the basis of their shared skin color and suggest with little or no subtlety that white people must stand together against racial quotas, affirmative action, will importance. The code words differ, but the message is the same. Whites are rallied on the basis of racial pride and patriotism, to accept their often lowly lot in life and encouraged to vent their frustration by opposing any serious advancement by blacks. Crucial to the situation is the unstated understanding by the mass of whites that they will accept large disparities in economic opportunity in respect to other whites as long as they have a priority over blacks and other people of color for access to the few opportunities available. So he's like the game plan, the MO with white politicians, which has worked for them for the entirety of this country's history, is you lie to poor white people that, like, you know, we're on your side, we're together as white people, even though they stay poor and you stay rich, right? And that works again and again and again. So the book banning right now, they're going to these school boards saying, stop making white people feel bad, ban this book. But at the end of the day, the people, you know, who are living in rural Mississippi and all these places, they're still poor. But it keeps people like Trump. Trump's whole MO was, you know, it's a white nation, right? His book is really about mapping out how this racial hierarchy gets maintained, who it benefits, and the reality that it's an integral part of how, I'd say the same for Canada, but he was talking about the United States. It's
this racial hierarchy gets maintained. Oh, that is terrifying. It's terrifying that there's no awakening happening from poor white people. Do you know what I mean? Like from a
I say poor white people, I mean everybody who's not rich. I mean like middle class white people too. Like,
yes,
you know, the middle class is being eroded. Like, so you're never gonna be Elon Musk. Like, you're never gonna have any of that. Not that that's even a thing worth pursuing, right?
right.
People, yeah. It's everybody doesn't mind maintaining oppression if they get to have some kind of status. Like, this is the thesis here, right?
Faces from the bottom of the well.
Best book on racism written in 1992. Racism in America, anyway.
That's the most fire title I think I've ever seen in my life too.
B is also for Derrick Bell.
Okay, you guys. I thought those were some interesting videos.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk some more, you guys here on Facebook Live that may have been listening. I wanted to share some of that with you just in case you were interested and you weren't able to attend today. So anyway, we're about to shut down, have some more conversation, and we'll be back right before the 4 o'clock hour, okay? Bye. Hey everybody. This is the closeout video for the 2024 MLRG Life and Style Tour Stop, which was a book discussion of Faces at the Bottom of the Well. And we have had a lovely discussion this afternoon. I am just so happy that we were able to do this. I'm going to play this video, but let me give you a few closeout messages. So I'm looking for suggestions for 2025. We will need 4 books. I have some already that I'm considering. I kind of want, of course, you know, I like biographical, human rights, advocacy type books, but I'm also kind of looking at mental health this year. How do we deal with that? Because that is a concern in many communities, especially just from the trauma of dealing with so many different things in life. We really need to look at our mental health and make sure that we're addressing any issues. Just so you know, next month we will play, is it Spades next month? I think it's Spades next month. It's game night. It will be posted. You'll be able to register. You can register for everything to the end of the year. We'll be putting up our 2025 schedule. That's already in draft. Just got to add the books. We enjoy your participation in our tour stop, which started in 2019, survived the pandemic. It was in person, now it's online, and it's become a part of Metropolitan Living Realty's group's yearly activities. So thank you for being a part of that. And I'm going to say this is about 5 minutes if you can hang on and stay with us, but I'm going to show you this video.
Law professor Derrick Bell is one of our movement's giants, one of our true heroes. About his Faces at the Bottom of the Well, The Permanence of Racism, published by Basic Books, historian Henry Louis Gates Jr. has said it is, by turns, energizing and infuriating. And Professor Gates is right on target when he notes that this is a book that readers will want to fling across the room or pore over with assiduous care. That a reader would be left indifferent, however, is unimaginable. Indeed, I dare say that nothing my guest could write or do or say would ever leave one indifferent, including his likely response to my asking right off what in the world he means by writing, "The challenge throughout has been to tell what I view as the truth about racism without causing disabling despair." What do you mean?
It seems to me that both history, my experience, current events as we read them, all point to one conclusion about racism in this society, and that is that it is permanent, that it is an essential, it is not an aberration, it is not what most of us believed it was 30, 40 years ago, a pimple on an otherwise beautiful complexion of America as a place of freedom and equality for all. We all believed that at one time. That was the Gunnar Myrdal report, the huge study of racial discrimination in the 40s, and we all accepted that. As a litigator, I acted on that belief, and I think though that even though it means tearing down in a way much of what I've done, much of what others have done, that we have to, on the tatters of what we thought would be a wonderful edifice, in the ruins, we have to see what there is to be seen. And that leads me to that conclusion.
Yes, but how can you use the phrase without despair? Because what you're saying inevitably leads to despair, and inevitably is an interesting word because you seem to have adopted a determinism here that cuts out room for anything other than despair.
Well, I certainly have to acknowledge the temptation to despair that this leads, because it's so different from that we have followed and believed. The fact is, though, that to continue on with those beliefs leads to a more definite despair. Moreover, it does not provide any insight on where we should go from here. I think that there is something that has that stuff of revival about truth. The truth of individuals who learn that they have terminal cancer, let us say, and we put it on an individual basis. For some, they jump out the window. For many others, though, after they get themselves together, they live, with whatever time they have, more purposeful lives. Why? Because they have gotten beyond that afflicts us all in one level or another, which is the belief that, well, death is something that happens to somebody else, but it's not going to happen to me. And we live our lives often enough as though we're going to be here permanently and waste an awful lot of our lives. I think that there's a similar situation with regard to our commitment to racial equality.
But black and white and yellow and whatever other color you can think of will be here permanently. So the metaphor you use there is, it seems to me, one that is lacking, because you're quite correct. You deal with the reality of your coming death. I must, you must, one who has cancer today must. But you know that there is an end to it. Are you suggesting that there is an end to, a deadly end to the relations between the races?
I think that the analogy, as you're pointing out, is not a perfect one. But I think it is helpful in that individuals, when they face up to the reality of their death, are able to live more purposeful lives. if we face up to the reality of racism and the role it plays in the society, that it's not simply an aberration, that it's a necessary stabilizing influence in a society like ours. That doesn't mean that we give up. It means that we are able to face the real problems, the real enemy, if you will, and to fashion tactics and strategies that are likely to be more effective. Not guaranteed, not likely even to bring about the kind of era we thought about when we sang We Shall Overcome, but likely to be a more meaningful, lead to a more meaningful endeavor than we're now engaged.
Okay, so this is the end of our stop for the 2024 MLRG Life and Style September Tour Stop, and we've had a eventful, interesting discussion. I hope that you'll be able to join us in the future on some of our other activities, so please feel free to check out our page for the links, or you can go to www.metropolitanlivingrealtygroup.com. There's a page, and all of our events are there. All right, I hope you're having a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.